Alright, what's good everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I have a really interesting video to talk about today. So, I kind of realized that I've talked to a lot of guitar players at this point. It's been around 100 people that I've just talked to, taught, you know, messaged and just, gone through their goals and like what their problems are and stuff with it. Basically, a bunch of variations of things like guitar lessons, like free trial guitar lessons that I do for like the first lesson and stuff. And I talk them through. I'm like, what's going on? Why are you here? Like, why are you having all these problems with guitar and stuff like that? So here's what I'm gonna do. I have tons of data right up here in my brain of these mostly comeback guitar players, but just guitar players in general who are kind of struggling. I'm going to give you basically the top 5 reasons why people end up quitting guitar and how you can avoid doing those things. Okay, so that's going to be the video. It's going to be really fun, so let's get right into it. Okay, so talking about these 100+ people that I've talked to throughout the years, okay, and listen, this is the vast majority of the people that I've talked to is over a phone call or over Zoom and things like that, mostly over Zoom, okay, so just factor in that, when you're speaking to somebody through a screen, sometimes information could get a little bit, let's just say, twisted, meaning that, guitar players are notorious for lying about things like how long they're practicing and how disciplined they are and stuff like that, but I've done this for a long enough time to where I can tell when somebody is exaggerating to impress me. Okay, so being on these sessions with people, I see when they're lying. And listen, the number one reason why people tend to quit the guitar is just simply by they don't care about it enough. Okay, so we're going to get into the specifics of why that is, because that has to do with 2, 3, 4, and 5. But the number one reason is just people don't really care about it enough. I mean, maybe when you're in high school or a little bit of college, you have that dream of wanting to really succeed in being in a band. But then there's this weird period of your mid-20s to where you're like, starting to get a little nervous, I'm not sure if I can do this, if I can really commit to this. I'm scared about, this change, or this thing is not going to work out, or this thing is not going to work out. Basically, I'm saying is that your confidence goes down quite significantly, and often guitar players use things like, life getting in the way, or using things like, family stuff, which these can be valid to some extent, but there's no need to put down the guitar for 10 or 20 years without ever touching it again, right? And those are the kinds of people that I'm talking about. So usually it just has to do with not wanting it enough, because when you're in that time that I'm talking about, it's really easy to quit if you don't want it enough. Really, really easy to quit if you don't want that enough, right? But for the few people that still believe in themselves, for the few people that still want it badly enough, are going to do whatever they can to get it done, right? Those are the people who end up prospering over in that kind of age bracket. Now, I know that that age bracket is just a generalization. Some people hit that even younger. Some people hit that even, older and stuff. And the difference is this. I've met guitar players who end up going right into a full-time career right in that age range. I've also met people who don't end up going into that route as a full-time career. They get a regular job, or maybe they continue going to school, something like that, but they still keep their guitar gains up, and they still keep pursuing their career outside of what they're doing, because you guessed it, they care about it enough, right? So I want you to really, really make sure that you care enough about your goals to where you'll do whatever it takes to succeed. That's what I do, at least. Everything that I do in my life, I like to go 100%. 100%. That's just the way I operate, okay? And that's what you need too. You need to understand that with something like the guitar, it's a long road. It takes years, and you taking a gap of 5, 10, or even 1 year is pretty detrimental and drastic, and you'll end up being one of those people who's trying to play catch up all of a sudden in their mid-30s and all that stuff. So, no. The second most common reason why guitar players tend to quit going forward usually tends to be the classic time, okay? So time is quite interesting these days because listen, like I know people again that are somehow full-time musicians who don't really practice very much, and then I know people who are working like full-time jobs who practice more than those people, and it's like it's very crazy. But here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about, okay, how much time do you actually need to practice in order to get really, really good at the guitar? Okay, so is it 1 hour? Is it 2 hours? Is it 3 hours? In my opinion, no. I think a sweet spot for people usually is somewhere between 20 minutes and an hour and a half. I think somewhere around there usually tends to be a sweet spot, and that's what I preach on this channel is the vast majority of you people watching can't stick to a long-term practice routine where it's really daunting and excruciating. A lot of people should stick with something that they can sustain for the rest of their lives. But usually what happens with these people who say that, you know, time is just something that they don't have anymore, kind of stems back to number one, the point of not caring about enough. Because yes, we all understand that, yeah, you might work a 12-hour job, you might work 12-hour days, you might have a big family that you are taking care of, or you might have you know, X, Y, and Z living situation that only allows this small sliver of time and stuff like that, you know. And there's a million ways that you can go around with it, but listen, man, like the thing that you really need to understand is that wherever you're at right now, more than likely is going to be the least busy that you'll ever be unless you're retired. Okay, so right now, you have more time than you probably ever will until you actually retire, because I'm telling you that if you want to make this guitar thing work, if you want to be in a band, if you want to really succeed at all this stuff, it's going to get super, super busy, and you got to get used to it, right? There's really not a whole lot of time for these massive, you know, days off and things like that. Like I work pretty much every day at this point. So don't let time be a factor for you. Understand that in life, yes, you will encounter roadblocks, you will encounter speed bumps and things like that, but you have to find a way to work around it, okay? This is the exact method that I use to get my students who are really, really busy in my class. I do the same thing with them. I talk them through, listen, yes, you are going to have times where you're out of town. You're going to have times where you got to work doubles and all this stuff. You got to find a way to make it work. Yeah, you might miss a day, you know, or 2 days or something like that, but you have to get back on the horse and you have to find a practice system that's sustainable for you. So if you're interested in working with that sustainable routine, all you got to do is click the link below. There's a free demo with me. I'll walk you through what everything looks like. I'll show you the ins and outs of everything. It's a really awesome class. I feel like you would really learn a lot, especially if you are someone who just falls under that busy category and wants the solution right away. So time typically is a factor, right? That would be my second reason, right? Now, usually, more often than not, the third reason just comes from not having the discipline to sit down and practice. Okay, this is a huge one. Now, when I say not having enough discipline, I mean, listen, like I said earlier, guitar players, they like to lie, right? A lot of guitar players are like this, where they will say that they do one thing, like they practice this much and try these things, but it just isn't working. It's like, in reality, it's like if we were to really be able to secretly watch you practice, right, there probably wouldn't be as much practicing going on as you're saying, right? And that's just the reality. I think that's just how humans are built in general. We don't want to look like we're lacking in things, you know, it's embarrassing, especially when it's something that we're really passionate about, right? But nonetheless, when it comes to not practicing enough, this is a huge reason why people end up quitting. And it stems, again, going back to the first point, which is you don't care about it enough, right? Why would you practice something when you don't care about it enough? So if you notice kind of a correlation here, all of these points here just kind of stem from not really caring about it enough, right? Not really caring about the final result, the goal, the finish line, so to speak, even though we know with guitar there's not really a finish line, but with your goals, there are definitely checkpoints that you'll get through, right? And you want to hit those checkpoints, you got to practice every single day, right? Now, that leads to the next point, okay, number 4, which more so just has to do with not knowing what to practice. Now, this is the first thing out of all these things that I actually empathize with a lot, okay? Let me take a water. Went on like a run today, so a little dehydrated, but not knowing what to practice is a completely real thing here, okay? So let's think about this for a second. If you go back 40 years, 50 years, 30 years, whatever, even maybe not 20 years, but you're going to notice, okay, that they didn't really have the resources back then that we have now, right? Maybe in the 80s they had like the tab books, and maybe like the 90s some of those DVDs like the Rock Discipline DVD from John Petrucci. In the, I think it was late 90s or early 2000s, we had Speed Kills from Michelangelo Badio, right? Those things were coming out around that time, but before that there wasn't a whole lot we had to work with, other than, I'm saying we as if I was not born then, but I'm saying that we have so much resources now compared to back then, to a point where it's almost too much information and it's causing people to not know what to do. Okay? So here's where I really empathize is with guitar, in my opinion, too much information for somebody is always going to be a bad thing. I've seen it time and time again with students that I work with in my class and private lessons that I used to do all the time and stuff like that. Is there were always those students who just, they always wanted more, and I would write these like music theory books, and they were like, Aiden, when can I see like the 4th music theory book or the 3rd music theory book? And I'm like, you can't even understand the 1st music theory book. I'm like, why are you asking me for that? Because I just want to know more information and stuff and all this stuff. And it's like, this is one of the biggest problems that actually is with, you know, learning things on YouTube, with going through guitar tabs, going through different websites and stuff like that, is there is literally so much information that you're taking one from here, from here, from here, from here, from here, from here, from here. And it can really, really mess up your straight line system into getting success. Okay, because that's what you really need at the end of the day, is you need a straight line system that walks you through things in a chronological order, and you need someone there to make sure that you're doing everything right. Okay? So if you're just kind of going through and taking all these like random little tidbits that you're finding without following some sort of a system, right? You tend to know a lot of random little things, but you don't know the big picture of things. And this is not just me saying these things, right? This is me from people that I've talked to many, many times. They'll say that, yeah, I'm self-taught, I use YouTube and things like that, or I have a ton of books, and they'll show me this big stack of books. And then I'm like, okay, can you play me a harmonic minor scale? And they're like, what is a harmonic minor scale? Or I'll say like, hey, tell me how many sharps the key of D major has, and they won't know, right? And that's really frightening to see. And I've seen it time and time again. But again, stems back, guitar players tend to lie about how much they actually practice, how much they actually research, and things like that. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But that is one thing that I empathize with. So if I can give you any advice on that, get a freaking teacher. Okay? Stop trying to have so much pride. Stop trying to be cheap. Okay? And get a teacher. The reason why I'm saying that is because I was in the same place as you are if you are self-taught, right? I had moments throughout my guitar playing journey where I was self-taught, long time, and I had so much pride in doing everything myself and learning everything myself and not spending any money on lessons. But again, guitar players are not as logical as they probably should be, right? Oftentimes guitar players, they spend their hard-earned money on more guitars, more gear, a nice pedal board, you know, a new amp, a new rig, and all these crazy things, and all these plugins and DAWs and all these things that they don't need, but they don't invest in their actual knowledge. They don't invest in just taking some lessons or joining maybe some kind of like Ben Eller's Patreon, for example, is a really good one if you're looking for something that's like, you know, affordable and is really, really good. You know, you don't have to do a thing where you're meeting a teacher for 2 hours a week or something like that. And I'm just giving you my advice, okay? So get something that's more streamlined instead of going all crazy with all these things, right? So I guess my final point as to why guitar players just tend to quit, okay, more than likely comes down to having any sort of results, okay? So, yeah, you got the goals, right? You've got the practicing and you're doing everything right, but you're not seeing results. Maybe you're not getting as good as you wanted to. Maybe you're not in the band. Maybe you're not where you want to be in your career and things like that, right? And you're just unhappy and you're unsatisfied. That is also something that I do empathize with and I understand. So this goes back to kind of like why I always tell people to join bands, is because you need to put yourself in situations where other people are already successful or decently successful anyway. Okay? Because when you put yourself in like a band environment, for example, it's going to kind of prompt you to work harder, right? To strive for better, right? Things like that are really, really important for you. And after a while, there's only so much of playing in your room or your studio or your basement or whatever that you can handle before you want more. Now, listen, I get it. Some people are homebody and they don't want to play in a band and things like that. And I'm like, but what's stopping you from at least just going to an open mic? Or what's stopping you from going to like a jam night at a music store or a music school or something like that? Or just making a jam band that doesn't play gigs, right? These are the things that everybody, in my opinion, needs to do, because you have something to work towards, right? I mean, we all are doing this thing because we love it, and the last thing that you want to do is lose the passion for it, and just sitting in the same environment, practicing the same things, not having any end result of it, or not having any sort of payoff sucks. So I think you should really think about trying to join some sort of band, or trying to do more open mics or something like that, or maybe even just posting YouTube videos. Things that will at least show like, hey, I'm working towards something, right? And I've talked about this already before, like why I'm getting kind of annoyed that there are so many YouTubers out there who are telling you not to join a band. I'm going to tell you the opposite. I think you should join a band. So those are my things. So hope you learned something.